Hey, this is Dan with the Video Game Collecting Podcast. Hey, this is Dan with the Video Game Collecting Podcast. This is part 2 of 2 with Deniz Kahn of Wada Games. Without further ado, let's jump back in and go straight into the questions. Well, I will touch on real quick, I'll let you think about what that was, is I don't even consider when people say games are meant to be played. I'm like, if you want a cart, there's a million out there, whatever. I go have fun with that. But it is interesting, you come from a comic book background, how video games, it's so early in the whole market cycle of people collecting. The prices are nuts compared to comic. When you look at the life cycle, started in 1939, it's just insane where video games is so early. And it's everyone we grew up with. I say it's our parents. Our parents had comic books. We had video games. I mean, that's the truth. And
well, everyone had video games, right? Maybe some of our parents had comic books, right? That's the other thing, is that video games touch just about everyone. I mean, maybe if you were Amish but if you grew up in America, you know, all socioeconomic classes, video games really touched everyone. And the thing I was going to say is that I think that we're lucky because we have so many arguments. The people we see the value certification, we have so many arguments against what people used to say about, hey, comics are meant to be read, video games are meant to be played. Comics are meant to be read, and I've said this before, and I'm sure a lot of people have heard this, but the experience was totally different from reading an original and reading a reprint or reading something online. The smell was different. It literally was a different experience. And Mark Haskell, was the first one to say this, our other founder, who founded CGC. With video games, it's the exact same experience, and it has more to do with if you're using an EverDrive, with the TV you use. Your experience has more to do with the TV than the actual game, right? So with technology, with access, with digitalization, with ROMs and emulation and all this stuff, like with the NES Mini and things Nintendo is doing, that argument is completely moot, which is cool. It's nice because it gives us more fodder, and it gives people more of an avenue to appreciate and get into the collecting side of this hobby, to appreciate the medium for what it is. I think one of the other things that makes...
Let me point out that right now, you heard it here first, Dennis is telling everyone to go buy tube TVs. Those are the next big thing. No, I'm just kidding.
Did you say 2Ds?
Tube TVs, sorry. Tube TVs. I'm just joking about people going to buy the older TVs to have that original experience.
Oh, Tube TVs. Yeah. No, CRTs, baby.
Yeah, no, and that's the one thing, I think a lot of people probably don't realize is Dennis has to avoid swaying markets and stuff, but now we're starting a TV market, and Watt is grading them. There's going to be people that are always just going to be on the other side. It just doesn't matter. That's why I think that there's trolls in the world, and some of them aren't trolls. Some of them have good points, and you can't just throw it out just because you don't agree with their point. But I'm glad there's a lot of us that are here and probably listening that like collecting what we collect in these sealed games, the CIBs, the carts. And, it's really amazing that there's so much to figure out still. I think let's touch on that.
With the art, we've talked about the art, everything. I mean, Again, it's culture. And actually, bringing up culture, the one thing you can't transcend and get people to understand is something cultural. And I think collecting in general is very cultural. I think otherwise it's a downhill battle in terms of, hey, the next generation, this is the golden age of collecting is video games. But once you go overseas, it's a totally different thing, Dan. And I don't know if you've had experience with this, but I studied culture in college. I was really interested in exploring different cultures. I grew up multicultural, have family overseas, spent time in the Middle East. And in most actually places overseas and cultures overseas, there's no line between collecting and hoarding. It's all almost viewed as a mental illness in a way. And I think that it's so cool to see that and to realize that one of the things that really defines American culture is, well, first of all, American culture is essentially being a mix of different cultures, right? Resulting in essentially not having this culture, right? And again, I'm distilling all this down, but it doesn't have a lot of the traditional elements of what you can identify a culture by. So in its place, what we have is pop culture, right? And pop culture is captured through pop culture collectibles like comics, like sports cars, like video games, like sneakers. They're quite literally pieces of Americana, of our history. So I think there's nothing more American than collecting. From all of my, like, the things I get, like the perspective I got, I was like, no, like that's what defines for me, like collecting is it's American is what it is. And with video games, they tapped into the pop culture from that time. Not only are video games themselves a major part of pop culture, but the things they represent, right? All the movies that were turned into games, all the TV shows, the wrestling, even Barbie games, right? Our representation of Barbie was hot then, right? It's literally mini snapshots in the artwork of what was good, what was hot at the time, and what was part of our culture, and what identified us as Americans, right? So I think that that's one of the really unique things that gives, you know, again, we're in this much bigger macro perspective of collectibles as a whole, growing, blossoming, what alternate assets, viewing them as, you know, ways to make money, ways to invest, and also ways to capture our childhood or nostalgia, the emotional aspect. And culture is a huge part of that, and no one ever talks about that. So I think that's really, really interesting.
I mean, I think the culture part, that's not awesome, but it's you nailed it, you know? I mean, I'm looking at on my shelf. I have a Bartman meets Radioactive Man. I mean, is there anything more in early 90s than for a kid that grew up than Simpsons? I mean, that, and then one thing is the music. Like, there's music, Tony Hawk soundtracks, or probably many others that helped many people. I mean, it was a cultural snapshot, like you said.
Tony Hawk Pro Skater 2, man. I have that as a Spotify playlist. That soundtrack is so nostalgic. There's a place where everyone can be happy.
Name the band.
In third grade, that was like our we would sing that. But
can you name the band? I know I can right now.
Isn't that Rage? Rage Against Me?
No, that's Bad Religion.
Oh, that's Bad Religion. Duh. Yeah. Rage is the intro. Duh.
So I've gone to too many Bad Religion shows just because my.
Okay.
Yeah, no, that's funny enough of like 3 lyrics, but no, and that's the thing. Like you said, it's the culture. It's not just hey. It's funny because like I'll talk to artists, right, about and who created this artwork, and they always feel guilty.
Art, by the way, Dan, as we've talked about, is the epitome of capturing that culture. To me, but I'm biased. Keep going though.
But no, I was gonna say is like I talk to the artists, and 9 out of 10 will like feel guilty when they say this, like, hey, you know, to be honest, I never really played the games. I'm like, I never expected you to, you know, but it's not about specifically the games. It's about everything it represented. If it's when you walked in a store and you saw that game on a shelf, we remember going to, like, if you went with your parents to, like, your mom to Target, you're like, I'll be in the video game section. That's just how it was. And that's what, for a lot of us, you would look at that shelf. And it's not specifically just about the gameplay. Though that is the major driver. I'm not going to...
Well, and that all ties into the history again. I mean, do you think if Mark Erickson had actually played Mega Man 2, he would have realized that Mega Man's not holding a gun? Or Mega Man 1, like the guy, they didn't even have an artist. They, you know, it was done in-house. It was just like a sketch by one of the programmers, as far as I know.
It came from Japan, I know that. Who made this?
So I was just going to say that the point is the disconnect, right? The disconnect between that is part of video game history. It's what makes Mega Man 2 so awesome, is that he's holding a freaking gun, right? It's like Mega Man, when does Mega Man have a fucking gun, right? You know?
I think
like, what is that?
I think now they should have added a pistol. No.
It's such an awesome story, though.
Yeah, no, I love hearing Mark say that story, too, because... he's like, you know, like it's a great piece of art, and you know, Mega Man's holding a freaking pistol.
Right.
Like you said, it's the history, it's the cultural, it's so much more than just a game. It represents so much more, and I don't think that's just us two fanboys talking about it. It's just, you could go to anyone that you went to high school with and they all played video games and they all played the same GoldenEye. How many people at college were drinking beers playing GoldenEye? I mean, it probably led to more beer consumption than the Super Bowl. I mean, not really, but...
Yeah, and do you think all those guys are going to be able to afford sealed copies, and then once those are dried up, the player choice sealed copies? F no. You know, that's why I'm saying the CIV market, because it's impossible. Like this stuff is not going to not be collected. But, you know, we're so immersed in, hey, this mentality of, oh, there's so many of those sealed, there's 20 of them out there, and that to someone in sports cars, it's like, are 20 in PSA 10? Like, no, it's 20 that exists. It's like, what? There's thousands of that stuff that's going through. The one example I used to use all the time is from the comics side is Hulk 181, when CGC had, back when I was saying this, it was 4 years ago, but CGC at that point had graded their 10,000th Hulk 181. And you still have those going for over $20,000, 30, whatever, 40, whatever it is, 30 plus in 9.8. Imagine if you had 9.8 CIB GoldenEyes going for 10,000. People would be losing their mind.
Well, I was going to mention it real quick I promise not to ask you any pop report stuff, but 10,000, in which I think Hulk now is at 20 or 30. I'd have to check. I mean, you'd probably have to take the top 10 games graded and probably still not even come close, right?
That's right. Probably. Off the top of my head, yeah, I would. Yeah,
again, no one.
Again, this is Dennis the Collector, not the. Don't take it. No. I'm just joking.
It might surpass that. It probably wouldn't, but yeah, your point is made. and we're talking about I'm talking about including sealed, CIB, and cart. And it's still a question mark, but. One of the other things I wanted to mention earlier, Dan, because it just popped up again, was the digital part when we were talking about, access and stuff. Video games as a whole, and I think I've said this before, but are the first real golden age collectible, I say golden age collectible, big collectible category that is evolving with the internet, right? And so we were talking about the people and all that. That's why we have this community. That's why communities are able to blossom. That's why the negative people are able to have more of a voice. That's why the positive people, that's why information is able to be disseminated more quickly. I think that we discount that as one of the big factors in why video games are succeeding so much when you look at other verticals in the collectible space, and we don't give enough credence to it. And it's something that I think, especially during this COVID time, man, I mean, for comics, sports cards, you have coins, you have to go to a show, you have to go in person when these hobbies were evolving. For information, for interaction, for community, and for sales. And how much of that do we need right now? Zero. It's all done. This is all done online. Everything, every aspect, the sales, the community, the interaction, right? So I think that's something else. I just want to bring that up because I think it's not talked about enough, and I think it's one of the reasons we're having a lot of positive and negative effects right now, and it's just something to consider. But going a little bit further after that, talking about where I think really the big question, Dan, moving forward is who is the collector, and that's the biggest disconnect I see right now, and I don't know if you have other questions or if we're going to leave it here, but I think the one thing I really want to say is the biggest disconnect right now is the collector, the old-time collector who's been doing this for 15, 20 years, who has 10,000 loose cartridges and CIBs and set collected, which to a large degree describes me, actually. Or is it the new guy who's coming in and who comes from Wall Street, and he looks at games as an alternate asset, and he has WADA games on his dinner table and says to his friends who come over, here's my King Tab Mario that I paid $60,000 for, or I guess as of yesterday, $600,000 for. And, it's a talking piece. And I think that the problem is that old collectors, who a lot of them I came up with collecting with, view it as an affront, right? They don't like it. And the reality is that the world changes every day, and the collections, quite literally in my parents' basement and other people's parents' basements, are now worth a lot more. And it's a very natural resistance, right? The flip side is that there's a responsibility to the hobby from WADA and to grow it for the collector, right? All collectors. But then again, it goes back to, well, who is the collector? And they're at odds. That's why I'm bringing it up, Dan, because those are almost mutually exclusive in a way. And that's why there's some tension there. Because we were never exposed to this. We were never exposed to fractional ownership. We were never exposed to people who have not been doing this for 10 years and are ready to drop $500,000 on a video game. And I think a lot of people, like I said, view it as a front. They view it as an insult, as how dare you decide what's valuable when I am the one who, with my knowledge, should know what's valuable. And this is what our small community of other knowledgeable people decided. And again, I'm not saying this to criticize one or the other. I have my feet, like I said, in both camps, but way more in the collector camp. But I'm still trying to, I have a much better grasp on it, and I'm still trying to understand and still trying to see that these aren't mutually exclusive, that these can both exist. These are the new collectors, and they live in both camps. Some of them live in both, some of them live in one, some of them live in the other. But this new collector is not changing. And you're going to have the knowledgeable ones. You're going to have the ones who say games are meant to be played. We're all going to have to coexist, and we're going to kind of have to figure out why. And what's going to bring us all together? I don't know, if anything. Maybe these rifts are good in the long term. Maybe they're not. But it exists, and I don't think people touch on it enough. And I think people get very emotional, but we all have to remember that we're all just trying to, appreciate this hobby. Look, a lot of the new guys, they definitely are not into gaming, right? Definitely not. It's a trend. Most collectors aren't even. I am. I love speedrunning. Speedrunning is one thing that I follow, right? I'm fascinated by it. And there was a speedrunner for Mario 3 that I watch from time to time on Twitch. I'd put him in the background when I'm doing work or whatever. And he bought a WADA game. He bought a WADA graded 9.4 Mario 3 and spent a lot of money on it. So I think, seeing that was sort of like, hey, we can all sort of come from our different backgrounds and still get a taste of everyone else's different thing, but we don't all have to understand it or all have to be on the same page about it. But why are people so negative? That's the thing I don't get, right? But hey, I say that because I see so much negativity out there. But people are I guess charged, passionate.
What is the internet, right?
They don't like how other people live. It applies to politics, games, whatever, right?
Real quick to touch on is how my perspective of what you said. I agree that there is always going to be that, where people spend money, people are going to be like, oh, that someone overspent, underspent, who's buying that? But, being on a different side of this, where actually I talk to a lot of people doing the podcast, meeting new people that approach me. It's funny that it's such a melting pot, like you said, of America, where there is a lot of people complain about the people that came over from comic books, right? That's silly because myself, I collected comic books, but it was only because I didn't know the confidence in video games. I collected video games for 10 years, but I wouldn't say I was a video game collector where I am now. But with that being said, I think I've told you before, and I've told others that I missed the Yellow Brick Road, right? And it wasn't until WADA kind of came along and gave some more confidence that I was able to come into this space and really feel like there was a foundation to really have under my feet. And that really made a difference. I feel like a lot of people are coming over, not because just the money. Now, the money will raise eyebrows and get people to look, but people love their video games. Most of these people played video games. And, that's great. And like you said, you play video games still. So do I. And to me, I really push people to go play one of the games that you bought because there's a reason why they're worth money, because they were fucking awesome games.
It's funny you said, because Dan, anytime I bought a piece of art, I made it sure to play through the game because it gave me a newfound kind of association with the game that, obviously, with my art collecting and with Mickey Mania, I actually have the game as a kid, but the other ones I didn't necessarily have as a kid. So I really wanted to create that connection, and there's no other better way to do it than experiencing it, right? Whether it be 30 years ago and you have the nostalgia, or now and understanding and being able to tap into that nostalgia and link it to that, right? But I'm really glad to hear that WADA's, and it wasn't not by design. I said before, I feel like that's motto of here. I said before, I don't know how many times I said that, but I just don't want to sound like a broken record. But for the select few who got the investment pitch deck from WADA, some may be listening, it was not about opening another grading company, right? It was about growing the market and knocking down the barriers that were preventing other people from coming down here, specifically 3 pillars, which were grading and standardization, transparency and grading and standardization, right? Creating a standard, transparency in the market, hence the, why we pushed so hard and went after the partnership with Heritage, right? And transparency and information, which, again, I touched on at the beginning. It's the biggest missing piece. But look at the effect that one of our initial pushes to fill that with the Black Box article had. And so it's again, that's the biggest missing piece. But all of this was about eliminating those barriers so that people have confidence to invest in this hobby. And I think it went a little too far already. Maybe that's because of the internet aspect that I said. But I was anticipating we would be where we're at in the market maybe 2-3 years from now. And all of that was just accelerated so quickly. Again, I can't point to any one specific factor. There's macro things, there's COVID, there's the collectibles thing as a whole, there's video games as a whole, and the greater brand assets like Pokemon and Mario and Sonic and the movies and all that. But man, we're lucky. Look, we're doing this podcast, and how many podcasts exist for sports cars and whatever, and comics, and how many exist for video games, and we're still at the genesis, Dan. It's so weird for me to be saying 5 years in a row now that we're just at the beginning, but I can't ever not stop saying that. Like at some point I'll start to say, hey, we're in the second, third inning. But when I was saying this is just the beginning at first, like, it was the warm-up pitches. Now we've thrown the first pitch, right?
What inning would you say right now if it's a 9-inning game? Would you say we're in the second?
I just said it's inning one.
It's still inning one? I would have said inning 2 at least. I mean, I feel inning 1 was Wada.
Okay, maybe bottom of the first. Bottom of the first.
Do we have any outs? 1 out, 2 outs? What's going on?
Bottom of the first, no.
Anyone on base? I think we have bases loaded. I mean,
I'm a big Ichiro guy. He got a bunt.
Okay, I guess the Mariners are playing. Who else we got? We got the Colorado Rockies. Todd Helton? No.
Todd Helton? No, where's the D-backs, dude? Slugfest 2004. That was my number one baseball game, and I was always the Mariners, and my buddy was always the Diamondbacks.
I always played Ken Griffey Jr. Yeah, that was Home Run Derby or what? I forgot what it was, but
yeah. The OG baseball games are great, but when it's Slugfest, I feel the same way about Slugfest that I feel about Blitz. From just like football versus / baseball was just taken to a whole different level, and you could beat each other up, and it was just. I would eat Lucky Charms. My mom didn't give me lunch food. Lunch food, junk food. No, my mom fed me. My mom wouldn't give me junk food, so I'd go over to my neighbor's house and we'd play Slugfest, and I'd eat Lucky Charms because I couldn't eat them at home, and I'd pick out all the marshmallows. And his mom would get pissed. But again, those little memories, like those are my favorite. One day we'll have to do like a thing where we just bring in 60 new people collecting, and they all get 1 minute to share their best video game experience. And because it makes me smile. It's like these guys who are dropping so much money, they all can still sit there and come up with their anecdote of like something I just said, right? And that's why this is the most universal collectible, and it's why it's going to, in 20 years, blow all of this stuff out of the water. Cards, comics.
I agree. I mean, that's exciting to touch on. And me and you've personally talked about this, not in this interview, but previously about how, and I broken record, like we get to be trailblazers. We get to figure out stuff that me and you both came from comic books where this stuff was figured out. There's the Overstreet Guide that was created after 30, 40 years. There's pedigree stories and stuff. The biggest collections are yet to be found in my thing. And I think that'll be good for the hobby and the knowledge that you guys are probably figuring out almost daily. And even like on the art side, which I try to, help where I can, and some of the guides and stuff. It's not that the information's new, but it's not out there. It's not easily digestible. So it's kind of so great.
That's what it is, Dan, because you hit the nail on the head just there. In a lot of ways, we're not trailblazers. In a lot of ways, the 2006 Nintendo Age members were trailblazers. The NES forum, dev forums, the digital press guys, like the ones that Josh always talks about, those are the trailblazers, the Sean Kellys of the world. But guess what? All that shit's buried. It's gone. It's not about discovering the information and researching it. That's very important. But it's how can it be put in a digestible manner that's relevant today? And that's going to be the biggest challenge. And I'm so much credit to those guys. And, I used to remember that feeling of being a part of that sort of, it was almost like an archaeology, right? Of, hey, this is like a group effort of figuring this stuff out. And people would go to their collections and say, hey, I have this. And it's a forum, right? It was a community. It's like, I have this. And we'd come to conclusions with that. But now all of that stuff, as we know, Nintendo Age is gone. But a lot of the information in general, there's no one area for it. So I'm hoping that we can find a way to not only gather that information as a community, but turn it into something that's digestible, that allows it to be shared with the masses to where they can understand it, right? And it's like to where we can choose how deep we want to go. Do we want to care about 4 major NES variants or 15, right? Is it just hang tab or sticker hang tab, Rev A, no Rev, Rev A, oval, 5? Or is it matte, gloss, hang tab, no code, hang tab GP, hang tab 2 code, hang tab TMNES, you know, like how deep do we want to get? And I think that needs to be left up to the new guy getting into this, but they don't even know anything I just said, right? They don't even they're just like, wait, what? Like hang tab? What's a hang tag? What?
Yeah. No, and that's the thing is like people coming in and people who have been here. And I do think it's a melting pot, and seeing, meeting new people that have only been in a few months, they're excited. That's the fun thing is that, old collectors, they're excited too. Now, always there's going to be people mad about whatever in this world, but the positive side of it all, there's a lot of excitement, not just on pricing, but just about video games. People want what they grew up with. And it's really exciting to be a part of that, and be part of, and that's where, I know we don't have the Nintendo age right now. And I really hope someone comes up with, a discussion forum that people actually all want to go and contribute or whatever. When we do these podcasts, I kind of hope this is a little part of the community where people can hear each other,
A sub-community.
Yeah, some community. It's not going to be, this is not the hub. I'm not ever going to pretend that. But I like being like, oh, people at least get your perspective.
That's where it's shifting to, Dan, is again, with the internet thing that I was saying is it's turning into sub-communities. There's never going to be one centralized source or community. Mm-hmm. So, especially with social media, forums and in general are dead. So you're going to see sub-communities. And again, it's really important, like you said, to have the perspective of, hey, just because I started doing this 20 years ago doesn't mean the guy who's doing it today has any less credence or authority or anything like that, right? Like I was there too. He just wasn't exposed to it back then. And just like me, I was exposed to it in 2006, 7. There were people who were doing this since the 90s, right? That I know. And I just that the elitist mentality there, it's not welcoming to new people. And guess what? They're going to find other places. There's no longer a hub to where you can be elitist and people are going to be like, oh man, they're just going to go and find somewhere else to be a part of a more welcoming community or group of people, right? So it doesn't help in any way. Yeah. If that's what you seek, that camaraderie and that community, which is the best part of this hobby. It's the best part, right?
Yeah, no, that's the positive part where hey, you can be positive. I see that on Facebook a lot, and I don't really like Facebook that much, but I'm on it a bit. And people ask questions, people shut them down immediately. And it's because they're new or think, oh, everyone's asked that question. But to that person, it took courage to go out and ask that question. So it's the perspective there of just hey, be a positive. That's what I kind of see is just hey, life sucks, but this is how people choose to spend their extra time.
Well, the way I view it, it's I feel like we were the goth kids at the goth table in the lunchroom, and we liked the emo music, and then that music became mainstream, and now it's there's so many of the kids at the table that are pissed at everyone for liking that music. It's and then they're it's not cool anymore because it's not ours.
I only like the first album. Just joking.
Yeah, right, yeah.
Second album,
but that's what it is. It's not ours. It's not it's oh, you're ruining it. It's no. Don't look at it that way. Look at it as hey, the thing that we sat there and everyone was oh, look at those weirdo goth kids. They're hey, what you like is really freaking cool. And it's now I could be cool, or whatever. But that's what kind of we're going through, and I feel a lot of people are resistant to it because they're I don't know, it doesn't feel exclusive anymore, and that's natural.
Well, yeah, it's natural. It's human to resist change. There's change there's new people coming on the market that people want to buy games and might price people out. But with that said, it could be a positive look at it as, hey, there's some great people coming into the community. That's the truth. And while there'll be some shitheads, that's always going to be, there is some great people that you will end up being friends with down the line. And it's how you spend, like you said, the perspective of it. You could have a great perspective of it and you're going to be happier for it. And you could have a shit perspective about it and you're going to feel shitty subconsciously. So it's really a choice. And I really welcome people to come in,
Yep, and it's not just from the community side, Dan. Let's think about it from the supply side too. The thing that used to get me the most excited about WADA is what I'm seeing happening now, which is how it would change the economics to where the quantity supplied would change. And so do you think that Mario hang tab came from a collector? It didn't. So someone, we don't know the backstory on them, but someone just made over $500,000, made a life-changing amount of money because of what's happened in this hobby. And someone else just got the ultimate grail that we didn't even know existed that came out of the woodworks. So, you look at both sides of that, and it's incredible. It's what's going to keep propelling and driving this hobby, and it's what's going to keeping us engaged, because we, the hardcore collectors, want to see that stuff. We want to see the Mile High collection get discovered. We want to see the Chicago collection or the Indiana collection. Wasn't that fun? From video games. We even had a little taste of that, right? So, and that's going to keep happening. And that's what I'm looking forward to in the next 10, 20 years, is seeing all of that and seeing what comes out of this, what prototypes are discovered, what employees that have been silent for 15 years but now all of a sudden realize that there's value in the stuff they had in their basement and attics. Literal basement and attic finds. They used to say that as a, sort of facetious, like, hey, those people are finding stuff in their attics. No, they're literally finding stuff in their attics. We're getting contacted by people. That Kid Icarus that sold for 20 and probably now would sell for 40, 50, but inherited, over a year ago. The guy found that in his attic, and that changed. That gave them a nice family, a solid chunk of change. Yeah, man, it's going to be cool.
Well, that's exactly, you nailed it there, where, hey, there's going to be news articles about the games going up in price. People are going to look in their attics and stuff. More games go out there, and more games that we didn't know exist, are going to come not just to market, but come into the community. And that's amazing. And someone asked me, what's my favorite part of finding games? And I said sharing it, really sharing, hey, I found a hang tab Kung Fu. It's not the value, obviously we all love when we have stuff that's worth money, obviously, but it's the discovery and being able to share it with the community of being like, hey, this was out there and now it's in the community.
Well, it's posting it and seeing other people freak out because it validates, right? It's like, I think I found something amazing, right? Mm-hmm. And then you do it, and then everyone freaks out and thinks, wait, you got a hang tab Kung Fu. Dan, I know less than 10 of those that exist, right? You've been collecting for quite a bit. Like, I don't know.
And that's that discovery. We get to be treasure hunters. We get to be, I don't know the word for, Columbus finding America, but whatever that is. But no, and that's
raping and pillaging.
No, I was gonna say, when I say Columbus, I'm like, oh god, this is a bad example.
Genocide? You mispronounced genocide.
Yeah, genocide. We get to commit genocide. No, I just meant the exploration. But yeah, no, Columbus was a terrible example, and now I'm gonna have other people mad at me that I'm slamming Columbus. No, I'm cool with it. No, I'm just messing. But no, and that's so much fun. Is that we're here sitting at almost 6:30, 7:30 at night talking about this community that both of us are passionate about, and really we know it's gonna get better. And there's gonna be this is the thing that a lot of people don't realize, that there's gonna be more tools to use for your collection. There's gonna be more ways to enjoy this hobby as it grows, and because when there's more money involved, there's also going to be more websites created and all this cool stuff and more discovery, more games, everything. I think it's just, there's a lot of great things to look forward to. And the funny thing is, most of us are really young when it comes to collecting. I was talking to Sam. He was mentioning how
Sam Spiegel, great guy.
Yeah, great guy. And that was the first time really talking to him. And he was mentioning how the average coin collector.
Sam is literally one of the most knowledgeable people in the world on world coins, literally.
Yeah.
No, I appreciate it. I mean, and he's a great dude. I mean, just a great dude. And someone, he was mentioning how the average coin collector is like 63. To look up the stat, but it's somewhere around there. At least the people purchasing high end on Heritage, that is just a random guess, right? And a random guess for video games is probably 35. And that just shows, and like, someone the other day was mentioning, oh, we have to worry about what will the kids play and what will they collect. I'm like, God, we're so early in this. That's like the last thing we actually have to worry about is the amount of people coming into this hobby. Because I think the amount of people that will be in this is going to be nuts. Like, that's the last concern for me.
Dan, we don't have trade shows anymore, but I used to talk about how C2E2, I remember these kids dragging their parents who are like 40, ripe grow up playing video game age. And I'm saying kids, I mean like 10 years old. And they're like, oh my God, that's the Nintendo World Championship. This was a contest. And Dad, do you know how rare this is? Oh my God, and they're like explaining the things in our case. And I'm like, my mind's blown, just like my mouth is open watching these kids. And it's because of YouTube. Again, the only hobby to grow with the information age. You're getting all these kids watching these YouTube videos, whether they're angry video game nerd or the gaming historian, and they're learning about this stuff. That is the foundation. They are ripe to be collecting in 10 years when they have some money, 15 years, 20 years, 30 years even for some of these tots. They're tots. They're kids. So believe me, I am like optimistic doesn't even describe it. It's just I'm more curious to see how things shake out. All the different dynamics that we talked about, and this being the most nascent hobby to have such a large booming phase of growth so early on in this life cycle. The question isn't, is it sustainable, but what's it going to look like?
Yeah, and it's exciting. I mean, that's at the end of the day, I mean, it's just, there's a lot of excitement. I think a lot of people get negative, but there's a lot of excitement that look at it at the bright side, and it's going to be great. And the point of young people, one of my good friends growing up, his stepson, he's like, yeah, my stepson collects video games. And I guess they listened to one of the podcasts. I didn't tell him for a long time I had a podcast, and he listened to one, and I guess the kid was like just going, oh, he's going to talk about this, about the black boxes and all this other stuff. And I'm just like, this kid's 17 years old or 16. I was like, oh, wow. And like, he's into speedrunning too. Which, there's just so much. I mean, I'm not worried at all about the amount of people coming in. I'm actually not worried about anything because everything's going to work out. And that's where, even to tie it back to WADA, like you guys, obviously, if anyone knows Dennis or Kenneth or Ryan, you guys are very passionate. And the one difference between you guys and pretty much most companies is you guys really come from the collecting side and care about the collector, at least from an outside perspective. And that makes all the difference. I think a lot of people lose sight of that just because there would be a delay or something. And they think, oh my God, they cut the low end. It's about money. It's kind of like the opposite. I hear so many stories where you guys step up and do the right thing that no other company in this world would do, not just video games. And I do applaud that.
Well, thanks, Dan. And we take that really seriously. When push comes to shove, we're there. Yes, we're not the greatest, not right now at communication, but if you have an issue or if you have something that happens, like we are on top of it, we will take care of it. And we have never had anyone who, after an experience like that, comes out of it saying they're still disappointed. We know. We're not going to bullshit you. Like, we know what's what. We're collectors, right? We can put ourselves into your shoes. So I really appreciate those words, and it's true. And we're going to have our woes. We're going to have our growth problems. I don't think there's ever been a period of time where we haven't had some kind of issue in 3 years, and we never will. And again, that's the hat I wear, is to whenever the issues come up, to do my best to put those fires out. But I still get people texting me, Instagram messaging me, whatever it is, about their orders and why one game's not, it happens every day. Like, we're it might not be the most appropriate channel, but it might be my passive aggressive way of telling you to stop doing that. But hey, we'll get it to the right people and we'll figure it out.
I think it should be said that if your game's not graded, most likely you could see on Facebook, you can see on Instagram that everyone else is in the same boat. Now, as everyone's in the same boat, there's no point of, at least in my perspective, emailing. Now you're just slowing them down more, and then you're becoming part of the problem. And I think as a former employee, we used to, joke about it. Well, it wasn't a joke. I'd say, hey, I know I got to trust the process. You know, I can't ask about, did my order get there safely? Not that I can't, but I go, you know, did my order get there safely? Is it getting graded? I go, if everyone's saying turbo's not graded in this.
I think we get like 30 to 40 a day, Dan, just saying, hey, did my order get there safely?
And I mean, the thing is, I'm sure you guys are going to contact the people if the games come, like there's a huge punch in the box, right? Like if you see a footprint.
Yeah, everything. You know, this isn't like you're ordering a pillowcase and geez, I don't know why that's the first thing that came to my mind. But yeah, you know, it's a complicated, like we're dealing with people's whole, like their items, their prized possessions. It's not some detail business.
Well, let me ask this, and this will help you guys as well. If a box comes in and it looks like it's had a rough ride, when you guys check it, if there's any problems, you guys contact the person if it's got, and that.
I mean, we open everything under camera, but when we get one of those ones, we make sure to like open it like right under the camera and document it, and we'll reach out. Actually, it just happened. I think it was like I think it was a bubble was in the box or something, but the box was absolutely thrashed, I should say.
I mean, but that's where you guys reach out.
That doesn't happen a lot. That literally has maybe happened, you know, I can count on two hands. The damage has happened from shipping, Dan. It's not as often as you think.
That's what I'm trying to point out, is that it's so rare that you guys would reach out if there's ever a problem that you guys think happened. But that's where I think a lot of people don't realize, and I'm trying to actually help you with it, trying to save you 1,000 emails this year, and saying that most likely WADA will reach out to you if they think there's a package that's been damaged on the way.
Yeah, I think, Dan, people just want the peace of mind is what I've really learned through looking at the customer emails is people just want communication. And that's why I said at the beginning, we're really doing a better job, trying to do a better job of communicating, because it's not so much, you know, communicating when there's an issue, but just communicating people to give them peace of mind, because again, people are really sending in valuable stuff that they really care about. And we obviously understand that. I guess we haven't done as good a job of tying how much we understand it to resulting in, you know, communication or our web portal doing accurate things or whatever, right? And these are not issues we foresaw. So we're doing it as we grow, right? These are growing pains.
Well, that's why you or Ryan are coming on once a week on here to talk about it. I'm just kidding.
Once a day, you said, right?
Yeah, once a day. You guys are coming on.
Sure.
Yeah. Every week, we want you to read off the emails. Now, to a few last questions. I really appreciate your time, just because I know we talked about it earlier, and we don't have to go far down it. But the website, you mentioned some changes. Is that going to be in the next month or so?
Yep. I think the web push should be in about a month, and then we should also be putting out a notice in within a month about some more accurate information for people. I know, you know, we're going to be limiting our content because people don't love seeing content when orders are so behind. So we're going full order addressing mode, to where, you know, if you have a behind order, we're either working on it or figuring out a way to make it right for you. And that's about it. And then we're dealing with the influx and scaling still.
Oh yeah, that's why I appreciate you coming on, because I know you guys have so much going on there, and really that's a focus. The other thing is, and you mentioned Pop Report earlier, and I know you guys get this question every time, and that's why actually, just to step backwards, I'm happy we didn't go over your intro story, because I've heard that story many times. And I figured I would save you that 20 minutes of.
I think everyone's bored. No one wants to hear anything I have to say anymore, Dan. I mean, this is in a waste of 90 minutes.
Well, thanks. Nice try.
That's why I keep saying, I said this before. I don't want to repeat myself, but, you know, I know you have a lot of new listeners, and you know, I forget that I do things on such varied platforms, whether it's a podcast or a Pawn Stars or whatever. And I feel like, and I even feel like I said all this stuff on Pawn Stars, and I forget I talked for 10 minutes and they turn it into a 1-minute clip, right? So, and I don't even watch them after. I just ask people, hey, did it turn out okay? Okay, fine. I hate seeing myself on this. But, hey, that Tyson turned out cheap though, man, right?
Yeah.
I mean, come on.
Good price.
Because I have to consider, I'm like, hey, this is going to air in 6 months. I know, and by the way, that one sold for a lot more.
Yeah, no, it's great though, and I love the exposure to people that haven't seen video games. It's really good.
Regardless of how people get on there, Dan, the one thing I do want to clarify that I wasn't aware of is that no matter what happens on the shooting is the deal that happens. So whatever people want to say about how scripted it is, if they say and they shake hands about a price, that guy is paying that price, and it's over. That's a deal.
Oh, wow.
A deal is done. So I do want to clarify that. It's very real, you know, in terms of if
that's
like.
cool, though.
Oh, that's cool though.
Obviously, there's shooting and how they get on there. I'm not questioning any of that. They just say, hey, Dennis, we've got another video game item. Oh, hey, it's Brian Nunzi. Okay, hey, what's up?
No, it's cool though. But to me, it's a very big positive to show people that video games, it is a thing, and I really enjoy seeing video game content out there. And I actually root for other podcasts and everything else, because the more stuff. Video games, I love everything video games. So when you see other people doing stuff like the Pod Stars, that was great. But to circle back, Pop Report, is there, I hate to even ask, within 6 months?
No, definitely not. I'm just going to be clear with you.
No, that's good.
Maybe 6 months to 12 months, possible. Less than 24 months, almost definitely. But let's not forget, we just entered our third year. I saw someone said WADA just entered their fifth year. I don't know where they got that from. We just entered our third year. And please show me, tell me any other of the major certification companies that have come out with their POP reports within 5 years. I anticipate that we'll do it before any of them. But we need to hit, as I said before, we need to hit a critical mass. We need to be doing a good job qualifying the information, et cetera. So 6 months, definitely not. I'll just tell you.
Perfect. No, that's what I think people need to hear.
It's very possible within a year. In fact, likely, but almost certain within 24 months. So you're looking at probably the 6 to 18 month range here.
Well, I'm going to help you out there. Let's just assume it's 5 years, and that way.
Just everyone. And hey, everyone asking you for POP reports, half of you are people who could use the information. You have information. You have knowledge. People coming into this don't. Use it to your advantage. Don't rely on the POP reports. Do some arbitrage. Come on.
The thing is, people that are asking for it usually have the advantage of knowing that these games don't pop up. If you see a hang tab Metroid ever, like if one pops up, okay, there's one. Like, it's not like there's 50.
Well, knowing and possessing are two different things, Dan. And trust me, I'm in that boat where I know, but I don't possess, and I wish I did. But I'm not selling either, so it makes no difference to me.
So you're saying, okay, this is gonna blow people's mind. You're telling me you don't have cases of Hang Tab Metroid Contra. You don't have cases over.
I didn't say that.
Oh, okay. I'm just saying the back of WADA, it's not just full of cases of these games.
Yep. WADA owns it. We're all grading it. We're obviously colluding with Heritage, obviously.
Well, let's just be clear. That was your and Kenneth's Hang Tab Mario, of course. And
funny enough, the one that did sell I personally gave obviously I've given some of my stuff, and really very little of my stuff, but a handful of my things I've given an eye over and be like, hey, if I did grade this, what would it be? The last Hang Tab Mario that sold, the one that I was being all biased on and saying it, shouldn't be going as, I didn't say that shouldn't be going as low. I said it. What I meant to say is those three just shouldn't be the same price. One, whether they're high or low, I don't know. But yeah, it was about the exact same grade as that one. I think a 7.0, 7.5, B+, something like that. A, whatever that was. It's been a while though. I don't look at my stuff. I don't get to be with my stuff enough.
Hopefully when stuff gets not straightened out, but hopefully when the acceleration of being able to catch up to the backlog and really get all the wheels turning right, you get a little bit more free time to go back home and take some breaks, because I can't imagine anyone that knows you has always kind of said how hard you guys really do. I mean, when you text, like, once in a while, Dennis will text me, call me an idiot at 5 a.m. I mean, it's not...
People who I talk to, they know my sleeping habits. If you're on the East Coast, I'll be easy to get a hold of in the morning. But if you're on the West Coast...
I think I'm just lucky that I wake up early, too, because it's it'll be 5:30. I'll be at 5:30, and I'll be like, oh, what's Dennis doing? No. But no, that's the work ethic, man, and that's what I appreciate about you guys over there. And it's funny, because I don't think a lot of people know Ryan. But Ryan, I mean... Ryan's a rock star, right? I think that has to be said, because Ryan's the hidden person from the community. I should probably have him on sometime just because he's a great dude.
You really should. Ryan's not only hidden from the community, but he's what has helped in a support system for me and getting WADA really from what Kenneth and I, envisioned and what we built, and taking everything and taking it to the next level. So Ryan is very integral to what we do every day, and he brings a totally different perspective about collecting, because he's not a video game collector. He has video games, he loves video games, he grew up with them, but He collects different stuff, and the way those markets, whether they're cars, motorbikes, watches, whatever, they operate very differently than, say, pop culture collectibles, as we call it. But Ryan's, yes.
Being we've been at it for a while, is there any last thoughts? You kind of like, hey, you get to speak to kind of the community. I know it's not always the easiest thing to do, but is there anything you want to say to some of the new collectors, some of the old collectors? It could be just from the collecting side or from the WADA side. Is there anything, last words for the community? Because it's all about community, right?
Be positive. That's it, Dan. I think I exhausted just about everything. And the one thing that I've really come to realize is that positivity goes a long way, and that there, every day in our lives, no matter what facets there are outside of collecting, there's so much positive and negative, and it's up to us to decide what to fixate on and what to, how to live our lives. And there's so much positive in this hobby, and there's going to be so much positive in this hobby, and negative too. And you have a choice, a conscious choice right now, someone coming into this hobby or someone who's been in this hobby listening right now for 10 years. You could sell out and never have to deal with this stuff again. But you could if you're so sick of it and want to be so negative, just leave. If you want to stick around, think about focusing on the positivity. Write an article. Do something good. Do some research. Contribute. Talk to people. Make friends. Do something. Life's too short. That's it. I deal with so much crap, good, bad, high level, low level, whatever. And that's the one thing I think is just that we that's a conscious choice that we all have. And that's something we all have the ability to do.
I mean, I really appreciate you coming on, you doing what you do. I know I'm not just saying that because you're here, but I said it before. I really do think you guys are pushing stuff in the positive, in the positive direction. That's the most important thing is for the hobby and the community. It's all about community. And like you said, it's the people we spend our days with. This is extra time that we're deciding to spend for some people. And, it's just how you live your life. It's not even video games. It's how you live your life. So again, thank you. Thank you to, everyone working hard there, and appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, man. Next time, getting into philosophy, we'll talk about Kierkegaard. We'll do a little bit of Kant, right? Maybe some Descartes. This is all.
Well, I thought that's gonna be next week, right? So next every Saturday.
Right. Next week. Freud after video games. But Dan, thanks so much for the time, and I appreciate it. I appreciate the forum, and it's always great chatting, man.
Oh, thanks, man. Thank you all for listening, and as always, enjoy the hunt.